In this video, I want to share with you a quick anxiety relief technique. And by the end of the video, you'll have learned a process that you can put into practice straight away to help you return to a much more calm, balanced and relaxed place. Hi, I'm Stephen Burns from Mind School, and this is video number 2 in the series on how to deal with anxiety. So if you haven't checked out the first video yet, you'll see the link to it in the description below. It's not necessarily a prerequisite to this one though, because this is a standalone video that you can use to get some anxiety relief. So before we kick off, if you could do the business, if you could like, subscribe, ring the bell, that would be absolutely fantastic, and that would allow me to keep you up to date with future videos. So what is this technique? Well, it's a process called centering. So first of all, let's take a look at what we mean by centering, and then I'll take you through the entire process. So centering, to be centered, is where we're more grounded. It's where we're in a natural place of solidity, both physically and also mentally. If you take something like martial arts, they go into centering techniques in quite a big way. And they do this so the practitioner can be much more solid, much stronger, much more grounded. And they then take this sense into a competition, or if they're sparring, if they're fighting, and it just makes them feel much more rigid and much stronger. In fact, I remember quite a few years ago now, I was very young at the time, I used to do karate. And my sensei was, to put it mildly, a bit of an old bastard. He was kind of old school. In fact, he used to do this crazy thing where if we were lying down doing an exercise, doing some ab work, and he found that someone was chewing chewing gum, he would actually reach down into their mouth, grab out the chewing gum and then throw it away across the room. He was a bit crazy. But anyway, so he used to also do this really impressive demonstration at the end of every class. He would take one of the black belts and he would get them to go through these centering exercises. Then when they were doing them, when they were in that place of being physically and mentally strong, he would walk up with a broom handle and then smash it across their abs. And the thing is, we would sit back as kind of young amateurs and go, oh my God, they must have really strong abs. They're so ripped, they're so powerful. And I'm sure they had pretty good core strength, but so much of it was coming from doing these centering exercises. It allowed them to be stronger physically and also stronger psychologically. So that's what centering is. What it also is it's about becoming more connected with your experience. You know those moments that you have from time to time in life where you just become fully immersed in whatever it is that you're doing? Maybe you are competing in a sport, or you're doing exercise, or you're engaged in an activity that you absolutely love and you find compelling and fascinating. Or maybe it's just, having a few glasses of wine out with your friends, and all of a sudden you find yourself just pulled into the flux and flow of the moment, and you lose yourself. You kind of lose time, so to speak. This is an example of where we've become fully immersed and fully connected with experience. And I don't know if you can recall, but when you're having one of these experiences, it's almost like, there's something blissful about it. It's kind of like you're just returning to the here and now. You're returning to you. And it's really where you're just becoming more connected with experience. And when you do that, you actually become more connected with you and the center of who you actually are. This, by the way, is how kids tend to live their life, on a day-to-day basis, young kids. Because they've not yet developed the cognitive capabilities with their brain, they don't really think logically, they're not rationalizing everything, so they tend to be much more involved and immersed in experience without having to force it. It's just a natural way of being. So it's about returning to that and then living in that place a lot more. So that's what centering is. And the thing is, we tend to, especially as adults, we can lose our center, many times throughout the day. I don't care if you're a spiritual Buddhist monk who's practiced the art of Zen for the last 25 years, then you will lose your center, many times throughout any given day. Whether it be through stress or overwhelm, or just the day-to-day demands that are placed upon you, or maybe someone says something that triggers something and you get pulled into negative thinking, or whatever, it can be so easy to lose our center. So because of that, we have to go through a process of recalibration, of recentering, And that's where this technique comes in amazingly handy. Once you get good at it, you can return to your place of centre reasonably quickly. And this can allow you just to let go of any anxious feelings or thoughts that you may be experiencing. So let's look at the technique. Let's take a look at the process, shall we? So it involves going through 3 different rounds, one after the other. And what I'd recommend you do is, as I'm describing them in a moment, you can do them along with me just to try them out, just to have an experience of them. So the first round is where you're going to be focusing on your breathing. I'm going to take you through a very specific breathing pattern, and that can help you neutralize feelings of anxiety really, really quickly. Now, I'm sure if you've done a Google search or you've looked on YouTube for overcoming anxiety, you'll have seen lots of videos that have described breathing patterns. So this is quite a common thing. I'm sure you're already familiar with it. But it really is important to start off with something basic, something primal, something physical like breathing. And it can really help you very quickly shift and make a change to your mental and emotional state. So then once we've gone through that round, we'll then move on to round 2, and that's where I'm going to get you to go through a process of focusing on your centre of gravity. Whenever we feel anxious, what can often happen is we can end up being quite off balance physically. We can actually end up having our attention too much up here on our head, on our thinking. So what I'm going to get you to do is to take your focus and then bring it down to your centre of gravity. Now this in some martial arts is called your hara. And it's just below your belly button. I'm going to give you more details about where that actually is in a moment. But you just focus your attention on that place and it gives you that sense of solidity. It just makes you feel so much more grounded, more centred. And this actually is the technique they used, or one of the techniques they used to, smash the broom handle off your abs. You don't need to do that though. Please don't try that at home. So then once you've done that second round, focusing on your centre of gravity, we're going to move on to round 3. And this is where you bring in the use of your imagination. You'll have seen this in a few of my other videos. I talk about the power of your imagination. It can be so powerful to create positive change, to change the way that you think and the way that you feel. But you have to do it in a very deliberate and specific way. So in round 3, I'm going to get you to use your imagination to meditate on a very simple but powerful question. And that's going to help you just bring your attention to the here and now and be fully connected and fully immersed with your experience. So that's the 3 rounds: breathing, centre of gravity, and then use of the imagination. So in order to describe these, I kind of have to stand up, especially for the first 2, because they are quite physical. So I'm going to head over to the whiteboard behind me there. So in a moment, the screen is going to go a little bit blurry and then I'll magically appear over at the whiteboard. So, are you ready? Let's go for it. I'll see you over there. Okay, so let's get cracking. So the first thing I'm going to get you to do, round 1, is going to be to take charge of your breathing. So I'm going to take you through something from yoga called samavriti. It translates as equalized breath. Now, you may have seen this from other videos. I believe it's been westernized and it's now called box breathing or square breathing. Personally, I like the yoga version. I'm more of a traditionalist in that way. So it's basically, like I said, it translates to equalized breath. And what you're looking to do is you take a standard count, so maybe it's 4 or 5, and then you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then out for 4. So you're equalising the breath across those 3 different places: when you're breathing in, when you're holding it, and then when you're breathing out. So just a couple of things I want to mention before we kick off with this round is that when you're doing the breathing, you don't want to be breathing up here in your chest. So you don't want to be going, that's going to increase your stress. That's what we do when we hyperventilate. So you want to breathe low down in your stomach as much as you can. Some people have, physical constraints, of course. So as low down as you possibly can. And you don't necessarily want to force it. You want to just allow your rib cage and your stomach to expand, almost like you're doing belly breathing, like diaphragmatic breathing. You allow it to go out for that count of 4 or 5 or whatever, and then hold it and then let it go. Also, before you begin this, especially if you're feeling a little bit anxious or stressed just now, or you're a bit sort of out of sorts emotionally, then it can be useful just to start off by shaking things out, or doing something random like singing a song, la 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 la. I know I look a bit weird right now. Now, the reason why that can work, especially if we're feeling anxious just now, is because anxiety is a pattern. It's a pattern that we play subconsciously, and it's something that we have pretty much mastered if we are experiencing anxiety quite a lot. So when you do something random, when you do something a little bit out of the ordinary or unexpected, then it temporarily breaks the pattern, and it can then allow you to then steer your attention to something more positive. So you can do that now. Close the blinds, close the curtains, so your neighbours don't think you're just a little bit weird and go blah, 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 do a wee dance. It's up to you, no one's watching. Okay, so let's get going with the breathing. So wherever you are, you can do this standing or you can do it sitting down. Just make yourself comfortable and start to breathe in for 4 or whatever the count is. Hold for 4. Out for 4. In for 4. Hold. Out for 4. In, hold, out. Just allowing your stomach, your rib cage to expand naturally. In, hold, and out. Returning your attention to your physical body too. Allowing that to go in, hold, out. And this is also an opportunity to be more mindful as well. So you want to give this your full attention. As you breathe in, hold, out. We'll do one more. In, hold, out. And I want you just to notice the change in your physical and mental state that you're experiencing right now. I feel really trancy and dreamy. I better try and remember what I'm supposed to say here. But it really, really is nice. It's kind of like a serene kind of tranquility. Things have just calmed down. Things are much more balanced. So then we move on to round 2. So round 2 is, of course, where you start to focus your attention on your centre of gravity. So what do we mean by that? Well, this is where I refer you to my amazing drawing up here, which I've just noticed looks a wee bit like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It's like a buff version of Gollum. He's very sharp hands, very sharp fingers and toes. I wouldn't like to meet this guy on a dark night. He looks a bit creepy and dangerous, but anyway, it's the best I could do. So your centre of gravity, if this top red mark here is your belly button, is your navel, your centre of gravity is roughly 3 fingers width below your navel. So you can find that just now. I'm not really going to do much down here because I know it's out of shot and it looks a little bit weird. I'm not going to go there. But if you can just take your hand down and just see if you can find that spot and just touch it, that place, 3 fingers below your belly button. This is your centre of gravity. So essentially what you're doing for this round is you want to take the focus of your attention and then you want to take it all the way down, let it sink down to that spot, your centre of gravity, 3 fingers below your belly button. In order to make this a bit easier for you, just to really take your focus because you want to concentrate on that spot, is some people like to imagine like a bright coloured light shining from that spot, just so that they get a visual representation of it. Other people, they like to actually take their hand down and place it literally an inch away from that, and they can feel the heat of their hand against that spot. That can help them do it too. I'm not going to do it again because, like I say, it looks a bit weird when I'm kind of down here. But you can do it. It's absolutely fine for you to do it. It really does help. So what I'd like you to do for the next minute is I'd like you just to take your attention. First of all, start off by focusing on your head. What would it be like if you were to focus on your head? Sounds a bit weird. And then just take your attention and allow it to drop. allow it to drop, and bring it down to that center point, that place, that center of gravity, what is often referred to in some martial arts as your hara. And I want you just to really focus your attention on that spot. Just allow your full awareness to go into that place. And again, you can imagine like a shining ball of light in that spot, you know, emanating that light. Maybe there's even a sound that comes out of it. And perhaps you can even feel the heat of your hand against that center of gravity spot. And I want you just to focus on it right now. And I'm just doing this with you right now and really feeling that sense of being grounded. That sense of that lower sense of gravity, or the center of gravity. Simply notice what it's like. And what you begin to feel is a sense of just solidity, that natural sense of balance, of being grounded. Not so much being fixed to the spot, but just being solid. And you can just enjoy that as you really focus your attention on your center of gravity. Perhaps you can even breathe from that spot. What's it like when you breathe from that place? Really interesting. And I would imagine if someone was to come up just now and try and push you over, you would be really strong because you're focusing on your center of gravity. You're allowing things to sink down. And this takes practice, of course. Just have a play about with it. Okay, so that is round 2. So let's move on to round 3. Now, just because we're moving on to round 3 doesn't mean that you just suddenly abandon the belly breathing. You suddenly abandon focusing down here. As much as you can, just leave your awareness in that place. Still stay in this place of being, relaxed, calm, centered and grounded. And round 3 is where we bring in the use of the imagination. As I mentioned, the imagination can be so powerful. So what I'd like you to do from this place of being just a little bit trancey, a little bit, very calm and very relaxed, you're going to meditate on a really simple but powerful question. And the question is this: when am I most connected with experience? Hopefully you can see that down there on the board. So it's a really simple question, but it's really powerful. When am I most connected with experience? So when you're asking the question, there's just one thing I want to mention. You don't want to be analysing it, logically inside your mind. You don't want to make this too much of a cognitive experience. You want to use the question to engage your imagination, and you want to allow the answers to come from within. So it's kind of like you're feeling the answers, you're sensing them. It's like you're using your intuition to answer them. This is really important. You don't want to be thinking about, what's the right answer? What's the social answer? Allow your imagination to explore it and notice what the honest and natural and intuitive feeling-based answers are. So for me, when I do this, it's often like when I'm out in the golf course, not in a competition, when I'm practicing and I can hear the birds chirping and it's nice and sunny, I can see the trees and the grass, and I just feel really connected with life in general. I think it's a nature thing. Or when I'm reading a book and I'm so absorbed in that book and it's like, wow, this is incredible. Or if I'm out with friends and I'm just really having a laugh and having a good time, fully connected with experience. For you, it might be different. So from this place, let's move on to round 3, this place of being trancy, centered, grounded. I want you just to simply ask that question. You can say it out loud or you can do it inside your mind. When am I most connected with experience? And allow it to guide your imagination and notice what answers naturally come from within. When am I most connected with experience? And I'll do it with you. And for me, I can start to see like pictures, like memories. I can start to imagine myself on the golf course and everything just seems serene. Everything just seems balanced and almost like at one. It's really nice. So you can keep on considering this. When am I most connected with experience? Another image that comes to mind for me is reading a book, one that just captures my attention. It's like I've become fully immersed. It's amazing. And the really cool thing about exploring this aspect of our experience is that usually when we lose ourselves in something, we actually find ourselves more. It's like we're returning home. Kind of like when you were a kid as well. When am I most connected with experience? So, if you want to come all the way back to Earth Central, welcome back. I'm sure you feel nice and calm and relaxed. You just want to gauge how has your state of mind shifted having gone through those 3 rounds. So let's just do a very quick debrief. I want to just add in, just a quick additional thing before we wrap up the video. So, welcome back. How do you feel? There's a good chance that you feel a little bit trancey, but hopefully this has made a real big difference to the way that you feel. So just one final thing I want to add just before we wrap things up, and that's to do with how often you go through this process. It's not just something that you do once and then you feel calm and relaxed and blissful for the rest of your existence. There is almost an element of training your mind here. So I would recommend that you do this once first thing in the morning and once later on in the evening, just to almost like bookend the day. And of course, if you feel like you need it, so if you're finding yourself losing your centre and becoming anxious and you've just really been knocked off balance, then just take the time out, just take 5-10 minutes to go through these 3 rounds. It can be a really powerful thing to do. As a little kind of advanced tip, one additional thing you can do is when you're going through the 3 rounds is you can play some music in the background, maybe some relaxed music, maybe it's Baroque music or something else, and then play the same music every time you go through the 3 rounds. And then what happens is the music eventually becomes associated, it becomes linked to these lovely, calm, balanced, and also strong and centered feelings that you're experiencing. So if you ever need to very quickly go back into that centered place, you can then just play the music. It almost like acts as a trigger, an association. So that's just an additional little thing you can add in to make this process more powerful. So that is all for this video. Hopefully you found this useful. Let me know how you got in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're getting on. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell if you want to keep up to date with future videos. So that's all for me for today. Have a great week and I'll see you later on.